Welcome to another episode of the Dadger. Today we have Evan Flood, a Wisconsin native and respected insider who spent over a decade with 24/7 Sports before shifting to, now is it On 3 or One?
On 3.
On 3, okay. And Rivals to bring unparalleled coverage to Badger football and basketball. Evan's analysis and relentless hustle are considered gold standard among fans and media alike. Aside from breaking the latest recruiting news and insider updates, he's also a dedicated father of two. Thanks for coming on, Evan.
Yeah, appreciate it. Did you write that intro yourself? That's pretty.
Uh, I sense I put some tweaks into.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah. So, most of the time, most athletes I have on here are pretty easy because they have profiles and stats, probably that you did, but they have stats that I can run through real quick and kind of get a sense of questions. But you obviously don't have that. So research I found out about you. You're from Stoughton, and that was about it. So can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, how many siblings you had? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background and upbringing.
Yeah, from Stoughton. No siblings, just mom and dad and me. Went to college started at Green Bay, finished at UW Whitewater. Now I'm married with two kids, and trying to figure that out a little bit. We live in Sun Prairie now.
Okay.
Some prairie that won't stop growing. Please stop building stuff and raising my taxes. That would be great. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're looking for, but played 3 sports in high school, and kind of was originally going to major in business, and then I kind of had an awakening and just said, you don't like it that much. You like sports, so why not try it? And it's kind of right place, right time where I fell in with 24/7 Sports, and obviously it was a great company that started from nothing, and now it's one of the biggest out there, and that was great for me for 15 years, and now transitioning into the next phase where it's kind of a little bit back to square one, trying to start something. I don't want to say it's new because they bought Rivals and kind of took that over, but that wasn't the initial plan. It was going to be starting a new site from scratch, but obviously nobody was there for 2 months or something, so it is kind of in a way brand new. So just kind of wanted a new challenge. After 24/7 Sports was always really good to me. I got no complaints about all that, but after doing the same thing for so long, it kind of was. You kind of need a kick in the pants a little bit sometimes. So, and kind of that carrot at the end of the stick. So, that's where we are now.
And I know in the podcast you did with Scary Alvarez a couple of years ago, but you said you're not so much a fan anymore, but at what age, like in your youth, did your fandom start with the Badgers? And was there someone who influenced you becoming a Badger fan, or was it just because you're, the proximity of Madison to Stoughton?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but man, I was a Badger fan as long as I could remember. I remember my dad taking me to a game at the field house, and we sat. There was no AC up at the top of that field house. I still remember sweating. Older people remember what game it was. I know there's a game-winning shot against Iowa, so I remember being up in there for that, and I remember bawling my eyes out the first time they made a Final Four, and crying and screaming, and my parents were like, what's wrong with you, I'm like, I'm just happy. It goes all the way back. I was watching Ron Dane break the record. It's probably one of my earliest memories, like a lot of people my age, but like you said, once you get a little closer to it, you start covering it for a living, you kind of lose that a little bit. Obviously, you get to know the kids when they're in high school, and you want to see them do well, and you get satisfaction from it that way. But people buy me Badger stuff all the time. I'm like, you're really not gonna or wear it. Like I'm not into that. I'm not gonna be going to games as fans. I mean, sometimes I'll take my son and my wife to a game, and I guess my daughter now too, just so they can experience it. But yeah, I'm not out there dressed in red anymore, but definitely enjoy watching the games and kind of analyzing them more than anything still though.
If you get any extra large, I'll take those.
Okay.
So you talked about you played sports through high school. Was there a Badger football or basketball player growing up that you watched and maybe pretended to be while playing, or was it? I mean, were you like most kids where
No,
it was just MJ? Everybody was just MJ.
no, yeah, I don't know if I ever tried to emulate anybody. I mean, Londo Tucker was a guy I loved when I was a
Yep.
kid. I loved watching him play, and I know that's kind of not the guy you're supposed to talk about anymore.
I
But
still love
you know,
him.
okay,
I
yeah,
still love
that's the
Alonzo
guy
Tucker.
I loved watching as a kid. And, you know, I was not him by any stretch of the definition, but yeah, he was the guy I really liked watching when I was in high school. And I'm trying to think of some others. Cam Taylor, who's on that team, you know, I really liked watching. Sharif Chambliss, who's on the staff now too. Marcus Landry, you know,
Yep.
guys around that era that you know, were kind of cornerstones for Bo Ryan. Were really big on me, but I could never do anything that they did on the floor.
Yeah. So, at any point in high school, did you have aspirations of trying to play at the next level, even at like D3?
Yeah, I had some D3 opportunities. I didn't really love the idea of playing Division 3, and you know, it's hard to, I thought, you know, get motivated, you know, for those kind of schools where, you know,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of fans at the game. And you know, I tried to walk on it at Green Bay as when my coach had a connection over there. And that was the year. So my freshman year was the year I think they beat Wisconsin.
Okay.
So they had a guard. They already had a point. I was trying out at point guard, and I think the kid they had started as a freshman. Ramon Fletcher, I believe, was his name. And he was the
Okay.
guy that just lit up the Badgers that year. And yeah, so when they made me go against him, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out very well. But I feel better now that he took down the Badgers, because he
Yeah.
was pretty good in that stuff too. So
So you said you end up at the University of Whitewater. You said business was your major.
I was majoring in business at Green Bay, and then
Okay.
once I got to Whitewater, I switched over.
Okay. So then I guess what did you switch over to at Whitewater, and what were your end goals like going through college? What was your dream job, I guess?
Yeah, I really liked. I think my senior year was when I kind of got interested in the recruiting side of things. I mean, I was always checking rivals, checking scout for, you know, interviews and, you know, updated offer lists. You know, I was kind of really interested in that game between the game, you know,
Yeah.
type of thing with these recruiting battles going on, especially in the off season. That was something that I really liked. So I got to Whitewater, and I majored in broadcast journalism, which isn't anything I really do now. But that was, I forget why I did that versus a regular journalism major. There's
Yeah.
something, people at Whitewater would know what I'm talking about, but there's something in the majors that, you know, that's the route you go. But I started my own like little blog. I think it was only like 2 or 3 weeks. And the guy who was at 24/7 Sports Wisconsin before me, Kyle Heikkinen, randomly reaches out and, you know, offering an internship unpaid. And I'm like, yeah. So I shut down the website. I started with him. And like I said, that's what I said earlier, just kind of right place, right time. I mean, you needed somebody to tap you on the shoulder. You know, it kind of makes you wonder, you know, if he didn't tap you, you know, where would you
Yeah.
be right now? That's for sure. So, you know, like I said, a lot of people always ask me, you know, for advice, you know, how did you get into it? How did you get started? I'm like, I don't have a story for you. You know, I wasn't the guy covering minor league baseball for 10 years or,
Yeah.
you know, high school sports, just grinding. Like it was just luck. You
I
know,
was gonna
it's
say
really all
I
there is
think
to it. And
every
then, you know, you try and make the most of it after that.
yeah. I was gonna say I think everybody who makes it at least has one lucky break along the way. You just maybe hit it right away. But so
Mhm.
did you have quite a bit of a following, or did he ever tell you how he found your blog?
I don't remember. It was so long ago. I remember getting a DM, and, you know, my heart's just racing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm like, yeah. And I had it in my head too, because I hadn't, you know, obviously was following Rivals and Scout at the time, and, you know, I saw 24/7 pop up right about the time I'm in college. I'm like, oh, that would be great to get in with these guys. And, you know, so it's kind of a quick no brainer. I mean, even though it was unpaid, I'm like, what else am I doing anyway? I'm just working
Yeah.
and going to school. You know what? Why not? But I don't remember. I'm assuming. Yeah, I really don't know, how he saw it, or I mean, I don't even know if I was promoting on Twitter. Back then wasn't that big. You weren't going to it for all your news. You were on it or whatever, but it's not like I was posting it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was just on a different board and, it might have been what it was doing and, just trying to promote my stuff that way. But yeah, I don't really remember how we saw it.
So you talked about being interested in kind of the recruiting process, the game with in between the game, right? Like, do you have any aspirations of one day becoming a recruiter yourself, or you just like reporting on it?
Nah, I have no aspirations of
Okay.
being,
Okay.
being a coach or anything like that. Some people have asked in the past, and it's just really not my thing. Trying to. I coached a few sports when I got out or was in college and got out of high school. Not that it's the same thing, but
Yeah.
my patience and for that kind of stuff, with young people isn't as good as it needs to be. And I definitely wouldn't describe myself as kind of like this outgoing, personable guy either. That's, going to be a great recruiter. So
Yeah.
I have my lane and I know where to stay.
So when the kiddos get old enough, not going to be a dad coach.
I hope not. Like I said, I'm really bad with patience. Like I know, and the other thing is like I know it needs to be done because I've been around the game so much, but I don't know how to say it to a 5, 6, 7 year old. I tried it
Yeah.
before. I get frustrated. I don't want to be a coach anyway, just for that reason. And you've played so much. I've played so much youth sports, too. You see.
Yeah.
The dads who don't want to be, and I mean, even watching my son just start a t-ball, like I'm even fighting a little bit of urge not to be that guy. It's like, okay, I get it now where these overbearing dads come from, but
Yeah.
my ideal scenario would be to stay away from that, and hopefully he is motivated enough where I don't have to be Will Ferrell on the Saturday morning t-ball game telling him to get back on the bag.
So back to 24/7. Your LinkedIn said you've been there about 15 years. What did the 15-year tenure look like there? Because when you started, they weren't owned by CBS. They were bought out at some point by CBS,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Did
Yeah.
that happening change your career path there, or was it pretty much business as usual?
I think I would say around 2020, 2021, I had it in my head that I was ready for a change. I mean, there's obviously some things, I don't want to get too much into it, but there's obviously some things when you're bought by a bigger company,
Yeah.
especially that size, that, all of a sudden some things change. Now,
Mm-hmm.
nobody looked at me and said, you need to do this differently. You need to do that differently. Like I said, in my goodbye, I mean, I never had job security issues or concerns the whole time I was there. Everybody kind of let me do it my way, and for the most part, I don't know another way to say it, but stay out of my way. I don't want it to sound like how that
Yeah.
sounds. But,
No.
they kind of just let me do my own thing,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
nobody was watching over my back. So there was nothing, in terms of the day to day that when we got bought bother me. Obviously, there's some perks, when a company that size buys it too, in terms of benefits and all that were really good. But there's also some things when you're bought by a big company that, you have to kind of fall in line with that,
Yep.
I wasn't necessarily in favor of. So, I've had it in my head. I don't want to say that I was going to leave, but that's kind of when I think it kind of maybe started, but it wasn't, at the first point they bought us, because that was a few years before that.
Sure. Was there an article or like news break early in your career that you can track back today and say, maybe I wouldn't be here or maybe been as successful as you currently are if you had never broke it or wrote that article?
I don't know if I can point to one that says it changed anything for me, but the one where I think people really got on board and followed me, I remember, was Monty Ball returning for his senior year. That was kind of my first big one. I had gotten some people to kind of open up and talk about, how he was coming back. But I remember I was young, and I remember I was sweating for like 3 or 4 days, wondering if this
Yeah.
hoping someone would confirm, hoping he would come out and confirm it. And I think he said something after, a day or two after my story came out that I'm still undecided. And I'm just this nervous kid, just sweating and sweating. I think finally the State Journal got something that, he's coming back, and I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. But I was on pins and needles for a while. But after that one came out, you saw like kind of the national people pick it up too, and that was a pretty big deal. Again, I don't know if that's one thing that, like, I'm kind of a put my head down and tune everything out type of guy. So I don't know. I don't like to sit back and think about things big picture, but in terms of what that did for me, I could definitely feel a shift in terms of just the number of people that were following me on social media, or kind of acknowledging me, so to speak.
Yeah. When you got to 24/7 Sports, did they give you guys any points of contact within the organization, or were those you basically had to go out and get all those yourself?
Yeah, we didn't really. When I started as an intern, I was just kind of following Kyle around and going to where he went. But yeah, it's not like a thing where they're like, okay, here's the numbers. You're responsible for getting your own contacts and all that.
Yeah. Maybe you won't want to talk about this since you don't really like talking about the past, but did you ever have any articles published? I mean, I know you had some with like Yahoo Sports and stuff like that I saw, but did you ever have a favorite one writing due to the story, or how you had to get the scoop, or where it ended up getting published, or?
Yeah, again, that's news to me about the Yahoo Sports. I didn't even know what. Sometimes I've done some freelance stuff in the past. I think what's the college football magazine? Is it Athlon or Lindy's? One of those.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. I don't know if there's one that sticks. There's one recently that kind of sticks out to me for some reason. It was last basketball season. I did something on Carter Gilmore, and kind of right after that Northwestern game where he broke out. And, I was kind of, like I said, after so long at the same place, I'm kind of in this funk, and, it's not exciting to me anymore. But I remember just having ideas. I'm in bed at 2 a.m. and I can't sleep because I want to write this thing about this kid who's paid his dues for 5 years and finally gets the break. And, we're in this transfer portal NIL era where, everybody's going to their school because of money. And then, here's this guy that just wants to be a Badger, and, he's finally gets his moment after taking so much crap from people for 5 years. And that one was really well received. I thought kind of gave me a little bit of kick in the pants. Okay. I still do want to do this for as long as I can. And I just remember, how many comments people gave me, and, obviously, seasons can be long, and, you spend as much time on social media as I do, you kind of, it's the negative comments that kind of we do. And that's kind of most what you get on those places. So there's that. But, after seeing that, it kind of re-energized me a lot for the rest of the season and going forward.
You alluded to it a little bit with the Monty Ball interview, but how much time do you spend making sure that you're fact checking, that your sources and everything are accurate, especially on some of these bigger articles or releases that you're doing?
Yeah, well, ideally you don't have to double check because you're right at the source. In today's, if you can't get it right from the horse's mouth, or, in terms of it's a player or something, it's their parent, that you feel good enough, you don't need to. That almost counts as a firsthand in some ways. But if you can't get 2 or 3, I don't think you ever run with it. I don't necessarily have a problem like going on the message boards and kind of describing it as a rumbling and not necessarily blow it out on. That's what those places are for anyway. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of our site is too, is just kind of behind the scenes rumblings. I don't have a problem necessarily phrasing it that way if you're not getting it straight from the source, but a couple people are telling you this is what's going on. I think, you're safe to do that for the most part. Now, it's recruiting, and or I should say a lot of that's recruiting. You're dealing with 17, 18-year-old kids that change their mind a lot. And now there's a lot of other factors like I said, NIL and stuff of that nature that, so I think I've been wrong more in this new period than I would like to be, just because I can't always see these things coming. But I would say for the most part, 2 or 3 is probably the minimum if you're not dealing it right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, you talked about social media a little bit. How much of a blessing and a curse is it for you? Because I mean, you have, I think what was like 65K on X or something like that. Like your following's massive, and it's a testament to how successful you've been through your career. But like you said, like there are a lot of negative people on the internet.
I think you have to remind yourself that those aren't the people you meet in your day to day. Like I've never walked down the street and had somebody tell me I suck.
Yeah.
And I'm out there. People know. I mean, I don't think everybody knows who I am just by looking at me. I don't put my face out there that much, but you talk to certain people, or they just look at your name, at the bank or whatever. They go, "Oh yeah, I'm Flood."
Yeah.
But nobody's ever, and to my face, ever said any of those things to me. So I guess I feel good about that. But it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, these are also the diehards that hang out on your site. You don't want to necessarily, and I've struggled with that. Like, I think I've done better in the last year, just like letting stuff go. And, I try not to read it all anyway, but, at the same time, a lot of these people subscribe to your site. You want to at least have some back and forth too. I mean, that's part of the reason on how you get your following is you're talking to people and engaging with them and, building some kind of connection. So, but yeah, I mean, things can get bad. And I think the best thing to do is to know when to be on there. Like now it's fine. Everything's good. The Badgers are 0-0.
Right.
Everybody's feeling good, about the season or excited for football. But the minute they don't score on that first drive, it goes quick. So I do enjoy it from that sense. Just,
why do you think people? Why do you think people come after you for that type of stuff?
I don't know. Sometimes I'm not negative enough, or I've never understood it, because it's not like I'm losing the game. And
right.
But yeah, if they don't like something I have to say after a loss, I'll be the idiot. But it's like it's weird when they win a game. I don't get any of this type of stuff.
Right.
They're fine. So I don't know. Am I the idiot, or are you just mad that the Badgers aren't doing what you hoped they would be doing? But it can get a little heated sometimes, and it can test my my Twitter fingers quite a bit. I'm gonna get better. I'm getting better. I'm just gonna. This season's gonna. That is a goal for me this season. I'm trying not to get in any Twitter spats. I'm gonna let everything go. If you don't like me, that's fine. You can say whatever you want, but I'm gonna try and not watch the mentions scroll down my screen mid-game.
We'll talk about it a little bit later, but if you're getting a lot of hate when we lose, it might be a tough schedule for you. Kind of a joke here, but I am being serious about myself. How much time do you spend making sure you are saying and spelling people's names right? Because I practice it before these and I still mess up people's names. But like, I was just listening to your episode on the Varsity podcast, and you guys are on there just flawlessly saying Forkrians. And see, I don't even know if I just said it right there. You're saying his last name like flawlessly. So how much time do you spend?
I don't. That is a problem, because I'm always writing it, recruiting. I don't go on much stuff, so I never say it, and I get caught all the time with that stuff. It's not like something you ask. Especially you do with these kids when they're. Sometimes you're at the games and that, like when they're high school kids, and then you pick it up then. But like Nizier, who was a transfer, you never would have known. I mean, you could have a guess. I think I might have guessed my way into that one.
Right.
Somebody got me the other day. Mason Reiger was the one.
Oh, yep.
I've been saying Rieger. It's
Yep.
Reiger.
I've been reading it as Rieger. So,
Yeah, so it happens all the time, and yeah, I'm getting correct. I'm always getting like we're sitting around watching practice, us and the other media guys, and we're just talking. They correct me all the time because they're the one like got the guys on the radio or the guys doing podcasts correct me all the time, and I'm like, I don't know.
right.
I just write it down on my keyboard.
Right.
I never say it to anybody.
Right. So we were talking a little bit about X. I actually found you back in, I think it was like 2020, the 2020 Badger season, because I was getting really mad at, I think it was Graham Mertz against Northwestern or something like that. But I remembered just like looking up his name to commiserate with other Badger fans, and you had like up-to-date stats and a little blurb tweet about basically how I think a lot of Badger fans were feeling at that point. It was right then I knew I wasn't smart enough to be angry tweeting. But for you, how do you watch the games, collect the stats in game, and construct these tweets throughout the entire game? Like, is that difficult to multitask that much?
Uh, it can be in the sense that sometimes I'll miss things just because I'm on my computer. Yeah, so we sit in the press box, and I got my computer going. Sometimes I'm taking notes or whatever, but yeah, I'll miss the next play here and there. But yeah, it's always on TV, so if I need something. Actually, our TVs in the press box are really delayed, so
Okay.
I will catch a lot of the game on that after I got my head down on my computer or whatever. But we also got live stats too that
Okay.
help us out, that are updated faster than probably what you'd get on the ESPN app,
Sure.
as well. So it's a little easier maybe than it looks.
So I know in your interview with Scary Alvarez, you talk about not feeling like a fan anymore with having to report on them, and then in basketball season, it's right around the corner from your vacation time. Has there ever been such a high pressure game that you lose track of stats and posting?
You talking basketball?
Basketball or football, either one throughout your career? Has there been just such a high pressure game where you're like, you kind of lose yourself in the game a little bit?
It probably happens here or there. The one that comes out was the Big Ten tournament championship against Michigan.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is weird because there wasn't a lot of scoring going on. But sometimes for basketball, I'll go down and I'll shoot pictures and video for us too for our social stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got my phone and I got my laptop with me, but it's not open. I'm obviously focused on the camera, but I just remember that one. Never looking down just because every possession was so vital. Maybe that's why, because nobody was scoring.
Yeah.
It just felt like every time you scored it could be the game winner, even though there's 10, 12 minutes left. Yeah, that one definitely sticks out as something I'm like, I'm not getting anything done because it's so huge just in terms of, okay, there's a Big Ten championship on the line, Milwaukee, the NCAA tournaments on the line, and Wisconsin's feels like they're in such a mismatch here against this big front line, and there was just it was just a great battle. It was one of those you didn't want to miss a possession.
Yeah, since you primarily report on both, should Wisconsin be considered a football or basketball school?
I've switched up like 10 times on this.
It's tough.
If it's close, I think you just pick football. That's the moneymaker, and it is close. Right now, I think basketball's got quite a bit more promise. But like I said, if it's close, you got to go with the moneymaker. You got to go with the one that's going to drive your athletic program further. It's football, but I wouldn't argue against a basketball school. They've been at the brink of the promised land, a couple possessions away from a national title.
Yep.
I think they've had teams capable of going to Final Fours that haven't gotten there. And, maybe, like I said, Greg Gard hasn't broken through himself, but, the NCAA tournament's such a fickle mistress. One bad shooting night, one bad matchup, you're done. It doesn't mean you didn't have great seasons or didn't have teams capable of getting there. Yeah, but when football's if you just say football and basketball, if they're both at their peak, I think it is football.
Do you think? Let me rephrase this one, because I listened to your Scary Alvarez podcast today, and I know you don't like when people ask this, but how do you think Wisconsin can bring some of the it's going to come out the same, some of those in-state guys into their program? How do we get those in-state guys? Because it's like you said in that podcast, it's not like we're not trying to recruit them.
Yeah.
It's just that they're not coming here.
You start by winning, for one. I mean, you look back at what Barry Alvarez, Brett Bielema, Paul Christ, even Gary Anderson, in those eras, I always said there's just not a reason for these kids to leave Wisconsin
Yeah.
unless, you're an Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama guy, or you play a position that, Wisconsin historically doesn't do much with, but there was no big 4-star, 5-star wide receivers coming out of Wisconsin. There's no great quarterbacks coming out of Wisconsin. So for most of the kids, it didn't make sense for them to leave. And the ones that did leave, I think, went to Ohio State and Notre Dame. Maybe I'm missing somebody here and there. That's the exception to the rule. But,
Yeah.
You knew UK, you were going to win 9, 10, 11 games. You were going to get developed and give yourself a chance to be a pro, and you were going to get an elite public school education. Now, a lot of that's true. I mean, in terms of the education.
Yep.
But what's not true is Wisconsin's not sending out a lot of pros. They are not guaranteed to win even 8+ games anymore, especially with this schedule. So I think it starts your product on the field, obviously, I think is a huge deal. The other thing I would do is I would take a Penn State approach. I mean, there are classes in Wisconsin that aren't going to produce very much, and that's okay. There are classes like 2027 where you might have 7-8 guys that you want. I would offer everybody that you might think you want. And this is something that Penn State does. They'll offer 20, 30 guys in state. Obviously, there's a lot more talent in Pennsylvania and just Philadelphia area alone. But, you put in work, you make it, at least give the illusion that you wanted them before anybody else. I think that's always huge when you're talking about this state. And then decide later.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to take a commitment. I know it's not maybe the most ethically sound thing, but, recruiting's a battle between the prospect and the staff. The recruit wants to generate as many offers as they can. They want the highest ranking that they can get. The school wants you to commit now and not look at any other places. So, there are different games that have to be played. I would, especially if I were struggling a little bit the way Wisconsin is in state, I would get on these kids early, throw offers their way. And just have that in the back of their mind that the in-state school is going hard, is because there are times where they get behind the 8 ball here. And I think a lot of them necessarily maybe Wisconsin didn't exactly want, but the offer list suggested it's a really bad look if the Badgers don't make an offer here. And so they get behind and the kid in his mind has kind of moved on, or he's developed a great relationship somewhere else. So I would get out ahead of it as much as I can, if especially if I'm not winning 8, 9, 10, 11 games every year, and I don't necessarily have that flex to be able to come in late. I would get ahead of it, and I would at least give the illusion that I was here first or close to first, and that I'm prioritizing you, and I think basketball kind of suffers from this too. I know a lot of the AU coaches complain about, I don't think it's as big of a deal in basketball recruiting because those are two different entities, two different animals. But from, the kid's perspective and the coach's perspective, if you're there first, it does mean something.
Do you think with basketball and how Greg Gard has been able to kind of bring in some transfer guys, and, Johnny Davis didn't really pan out in the NBA so far, but like John Tonje going to the NBA, do you think that helps with maybe bringing in some of these kids down the road here? Like John Blackwell's probably going to have a great year, potentially.
That's the biggest thing you can do. I mean, John Blackwell talked about Johnny Davis. AJ Storr talked about Johnny Davis. I don't think John Tonje was necessarily that guy, but this is how I always say. I've said this for years. Basketball. That's why I just talked about basketball recruiting being a different animal.
Yeah.
the kids don't necessarily care about wins and losses and NCAA tournament success. They want the ball and they want to showcase their talent for the NBA. And why Wisconsin was hurting in recruiting all those years, AAU coaches don't want to send their players to a program that was as structured as Wisconsin and was kind of viewed as talent unfriendly. I know people have their gripes about that stereotype, and I would fight back at it too a little bit. You can always say, look at the best players who have ever gone to Wisconsin. They've all done exactly what they should have done, whether it was Sam Decker, John Lure, every Devin Harris, all these big time recruits, 4-star, 5-star guys, even the ones that didn't go to the NBA had long careers, overseas. Everybody's done what they should have done here and, put up stats that they should have for the most part. It's not like they've killed individual players, but getting to the NBA is the biggest thing you could do to help recruiting. I know it's already opened doors for them a lot. In the transfer portal. I mean, Nick Boyd is a recent example of that. I know, his circle, one of the reasons Wisconsin got him over a North Carolina is the offense that they played last season and what they've done with guards recently.
Yep.
So he was pushed to Wisconsin. I know that John Tanjay was pushed to Wisconsin. Now, I know nobody knew what they had in Tanjay. Nobody knew that was an All-American, but they wanted him there. So it does help. Now, the other end of the spectrum is, I know a lot of people want to see home state talent stay home, and there's a lot of big name kids coming through Milwaukee and such. It's just not like that anymore with the NIL and transfer portal. If this were 10 years ago, I think you do have a better shot at these guys, but it's going to come down to, for the most part, is Wisconsin willing to pay for them?
Yeah.
And you're dealing with you're not dealing with unlimited funds here. I mean, I like to say they're not shopping at Walmart, but they're not shopping on Rodeo Drive either.
Right.
Still got to be a little thrifty, and the plan is right now spend big at the top of your roster, i.e., keep John Blackwell, keep Nolan Winter, get a big name or two in the transfer portal, and make sure you can compete nationally with at least 5 or 6 guys, and then fill out the rest of the roster and let the chips fall how they may. So there's not a lot of with the revenue sharing. There's going to be potentially some money to spend in high school recruiting, but you look at everybody Wisconsin's bringing in 2026 and 2025. Those guys are all coming here for free. They're not on any NIL deals coming here. The international kids don't count. Those guys are being paid, but they're already playing professionally. That's different than somebody they're expected to come contribute right away. So will it? I think kids are going to be more interested in coming here because of the offense and because of what Wisconsin's done with guards as of late. But again, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, does Wisconsin want to write a check, and or is the prospect willing to take somewhat of a hometown discount?
Yeah. So we were talking about recruiting a little bit. I can't remember who said it, but is that NBA Insider on an episode of Part of My Take. He talks about, he has all the D1 college coaches numbers for when it comes to drafting and other news, so he can stay tapped into the college market. So with you, I assume that has to be way more difficult with how many high schools there are. So how do you get in contact with some of these kids and coaches and parents now? Or is it not really is it not really a thing since social media and they can just?
Yeah, it used to be harder. It used to be harder when there was no social media. You'd have to hope somebody had it, because how would you get a hold of a kid outside of going to his game?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously being in a network like an On3 or 24/7 Sports helps, because if one guy has the number, we all have it. But yeah, social media, usually if I don't have something, I just reach out to the kid, a parent, a coach directly, ask for it. And the one good thing that I really like about the NIL era is the kids are a lot more willing to talk now, because they want to do the interviews, because they want to get bigger, build their individual brand.
Sure.
I mean, it used to be like, you try to call a 5-star or a 4-star, you might have to call them 20 times.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting more, first ring pickups and great interviews from those kids than I've ever gotten. And even like the committed guys that shouldn't be talking, and kind of keeping things under wrap. I mean, committed to other schools that Wisconsin's looking at.
Yeah,
they're even talking, and so that is the best part of all this that I have enjoyed.
Yeah. So we'll switch from professional to personal here. You have two kids. Maybe I don't know now. You're still a Badger fan, but not much of a Badger fan. Are they both being raised Badger fans?
I mean, I guess I haven't. I mean, my daughter's a month and a half old,
Yeah.
we're cross separated. My son, he likes Bucky Badger. That's all I can say. I've taken him to 2 basketball games. All he wants to do is go see Bucky.
Okay.
So that's a start. He couldn't care less about the actual game and what's going on. It's too loud for him. He doesn't like it. So, but I am a Vikings fan though, and everyone is my father-in-law, my dad, and my mom are really trying to get him on the Packers, and I'm going to fight that with everything I have. I would be sparing him a lot of pain if I let him go to the dark side. It looks funner over there. What's the movie? This Is the End, what's the movie with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum? Where
21 Jump Street
trip, and he's like, they're having a dream, and he's like, you should come over here. It's better over here. His dream's all like exploding volcanoes and scary. That's what it feels like. I should just let him over to that side because it looks like you guys have a lot more fun than I do.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm a Bears fan, so.
Oh.
And my wife and me and my brother are the only Bears fans in my family, and it's because they used to have their training camp in Platteville there. So,
okay.
So I know the pain. It's like, do I really want him to suffer this pain?
I don't want him actively cheering against me though, too.
Right.
Fun for me.
Yeah. So, you talk about following some of these kids at like a younger age, like Johnny Davis. I think you said you had been following him since like 5th grade.
Yeah. Not following him as a 5th grader, but I watched him.
Yeah. I mean, do you have to still do that nowadays? Like, go to these kids' games and like, really kind of see them progress through the years, or is it like we talked about much easier?
Yeah, I had 2 different jobs. So I used to be with NY2LA Sports and Prep Hoops. So we covered, and it was with NY2LA. I used to hate that, but we'd had a middle school league that I'd have to cover.
Okay.
It's so weird writing about
grade
school kids, but that was the job. So that I mean, he was in that.
Okay.
But when Prep Hoops, I don't even know if they have a middle school league, but I was on the road a lot, 3, 4, 5 nights a week at basketball games during the season because of that. And it was nice when basketball recruiting was, mattered. Now, like I said, it doesn't matter so much. You almost don't win or lose recruiting battles anymore. It just depends if you want to pay the price. So that's why I kind of had that experience with him and others. But yeah, I just add on 3 rivals now, so I don't do as much basketball.
I mean, you talk, not as much travel, but you still do have a pretty physically demanding job of constantly being in talks with all these different people, and on the road. For example, last week, obviously you were in Platteville for the training camp. Do you ever have like full downtime outside of sports? And if and when you do, does it make you appreciate like home life and just like, kind of absorbing that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say you ever have downtime when you cover recruiting.
Right.
And this is I mean, I don't want this to sound like I have a hard job, because there are a lot of people out there that, construction workers, plumbers, electricians, whatever, that actually make meaningful contributions to society. At the end of the day, I watch sports and I give my opinion on it, or I write about what somebody else says. So uh, I don't want it to come off that way, but yeah, the hardest part is when you're trying to have downtime. Like we like to go up north. My um, mother and father-in-law have a cabin that we spend a lot of time on, and it's really hard to just shut it down mentally because you're always wondering, okay, what could happen or what could I miss? And that happens all the time where you're having drinks on a pontoon boat and then somebody commits and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Great. So it's hard to, and that's the other part with being a dad now. I want to give them everything, and kind of not. Sometimes I do wish you just had that traditional 9 to 5, or at least I know what my hours are, and I can just shut it off and focus on them and my wife until I have to go back, and I know where I'm going to be all the time. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I don't think I would ever trade this job for anything. It sounds nice in theory at sometimes, but then as soon as I put a tie on and walk into an office and sit in a cubicle for 8 hours, I'd be going, what did I just do?
Yeah.
So, but the hardest part is you almost don't look forward to downtime or ever schedule vacations, just because my mind is always back in the laptop wondering, okay, what am I going to miss, or can I do enough work to keep the site moving, so I don't have to be on it all day, and people are still happy and you don't lose subscribers and things like that.
Yeah. So I always get into 2 final questions when I do these interviews. The first being, if your kids somehow stumble across this interview when they are coming of age, is there one piece of advice you hope they take away from it?
One piece of advice they take from that I have for them, or
Yeah.
from that?
Yeah.
One piece of advice. Man.
I know it's tough.
You're putting me on the spot.
I know.
I'm not a critical thinker either. Like,
well,
I don't. Like
we can go to the last question and circle back to this one if you want.
Sure.
Because the last question is going to be right.
I'll have something great. Don't be an idiot. That's my advice.
Because the last question is going to be right in your wheelhouse. Okay. So how do you think the Badgers are going to do this year? You can pick either football or basketball, or you can do both, since you're intertwined in both.
Football. Yeah, I hate this question because I never know what I'm looking at.
It's a very, very broad question, yeah.
Well, it's that, and I just don't know what I'm looking at in fall camp. I mean, I've seen teams that I've thought were really bad and ended up being really good, and I've seen it the other way around too. And, the reality is it's sports. I mean, I always go back to the 2016 season. The team wasn't supposed to be that great. They had just a death trap of a schedule where they face 5 top 10 teams this year, and the wheels are falling off against LSU and Green Bay. You put one drive together, Gaglianone makes a kick, and it's off to the races. I mean, if this team gets some sort of confidence or something goes right that's not supposed to happen, like who's to say what their record's going to be? I mean, anybody that's played sports knows, what you have on paper necessarily doesn't always matter. There's a belief that goes into this. There's this, like I said, right matchup, right scheme. Breaks happen. They haven't had a lot of breaks lately. They could be due for a lot. And we forget, we only talk about the Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska games too. We forget that this program was one play away in each game of taking down 2 of the top teams in the country.
Yeah.
We forget Oregon, who was number 1 at the time, needed everything they had. And I can't remember. I'm usually pretty good at remembering the games, but maybe it was. I'm replaced by. No, I know Penn State, but I've replaced it. I was looking up. I've replaced this with all this dad stuff now.
Yeah.
Memories. I was looking at burping pillows or something like that. So that's probably where this. Wasn't there a bad call in the Oregon game too in the fourth quarter or something?
I'm not sure. The one thing I remember in the fourth quarter was that pick 6, and then after that it just crumbled, and I was like,
and then the Penn State, where if Braden Locke doesn't throw that interception, I don't know who knows what happens. So they might not be as far away as we think. I don't think this team is on paper is as talented as the other two. I don't think they're as deep. I think they've got some major holes, but you cover those up. You got 2 schemes that I think fit the program now, and you're better equipped to compete. I'm still going to say 6-6, but I don't. I never feel good about early season predictions
Right.
until you see them when the bullets are flying. You
Yeah.
just don't know. But basketball, see, I'm a little more bullish on them just because I love the system and the offense they're playing with now.
Yep.
And I think they broke the 3-point record last season. I think they could. I think they could break that based on what I've only seen 2 practices, so take it for what it's worth. But I love the way they play. I think Andrew Rohde's a tremendous fit for what they do. The way he passes the ball. I mean, they've got shooters all over the floor. The question is, can they replicate some of the depth? I think they're really going to miss Carter Gilmore. I think they're really going to miss Kamari McGee. I think they're even going to miss Xavier Amos. I don't think they have those impact guys off the bench. That they need 1, 2, 3 guys to really step up. Jack Janicki could be one, but he was very streaky last season. But when he gives them, his A stuff, he's might be as good of a 6 man as there is in the Big Ten with all the things he can do. And you're talking about just a undersized player. You're talking about a 6'5" Swiss Army knife of a guard that can play 3 different spots. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they're slightly better. I really wouldn't. I know you missed John Tanji in that, but those forwards can shoot the absolute heck out of the ball. John Blackwell is a lot better. I mean, Nick Boyd is a difference maker as a point guard.
Yep.
And like I said, I love the fit of Rhodey. I think they're going to be really dangerous offensively, and they might be a little better defensively just because of Boyd and Rhodey too. Those guys are really good on and off the ball.
Yeah.
So I'll say record wise, a couple games better than they did last year.
All right, perfect. You want to circle back, or is your final answer on the kids? Don't be an idiot.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
I think that's solid.
That's advice. Yeah.
A lot of people don't follow that.
It's straight to the point. I like it. So, Evan, I can't thank you enough for joining me today and sharing your insights, stories, and the insider perspective. If you guys are, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening. Drop a comment to let us know who you'd like us to have on next. As always, on Wisconsin, and thanks again, Evan.
Yeah, appreciate it.